Welcome back to the Links Golf Podcast. I'm Al Lunsford, digital editor for Links, joined by Joe Passoff, my co-host. We're here today to talk about under the radar golf destinations that have actually a new reason, relatively new reason, for you to come and see them if you hadn't already, or a reason for you to come back. These are six different courses that have something new, a buzz about them. I'm going to try to talk without my voice cracking. I've got a little bit of a voice situation. That is what a career day rushing for Omarion Hampton will do to you on a Saturday night in Chapel Hill, North Carolina. If any of you know about that, but uh, my voice is almost recovered. This is Wednesday after that game against Wake Forest, but Joe, it just the Tar Heels just bring it out in me, and we're gonna try to power through here.
I get it, Al. I applaud the fact that you are loyal to your alma mater. Witness a fine performance from the Tar Heels. I believe they're now bowl eligible. Is that correct? Yeah,
Yeah,
some.
for what that's worth these days. Sure.
Well, nevertheless, it's certainly one of the goals for every program. Lots changed in the college football landscape, as we know, approaching the first 12-team playoff in the history of that sport. And gosh, we've got 12 golf courses. Well, six certainly, but a lot of them have extra courses at these facilities to share with you today. And I can help out if your voice starts to give out. My Arizona Wildcats did not do very well in recent times. Well, they're coming off a big win, so we'll see about that.
Yeah, I hadn't actually counted all the courses that are part of this. I know, yeah, it's updates to one course or the other are kind of the reason to bring you back to these places. But yeah, for a guy that falls asleep putting his kids to bed accidentally every night, and to have an 8 o'clock kickoff was a tough one for me. So, but I
Yeah, no.
survived, and I'm here.
Man, again, applaud the effort. Golf clap, tip of the cap. Al, glad to have you in place. So, as you mentioned, you know, kind of talking about under the radar destinations that have something new. I mean, we spend a lot of energy, time talking about Bandon Dunes and Pinehurst and Pebble Beach and Whistling Straits and places like that, and deservedly so. They are shrines to public access golf. And we love talking about them for that reason. All the great memories we've created at those places. But there are some places that maybe don't glow as bright in the neon that are also very worthy of your time and attention as a traveling golfer. And I think that's where we'll have some fun today, talking about a few of those spots and what's new at those places.
And often what separates a lot of these places is not necessarily, in comparison to Bandon Dunes or Pebble Beach, the golf isn't that caliber, but everything else to do at these places kind of makes them a must visit in one way or another. But a couple of weeks ago, it was probably 2 or 3 weeks ago now, I'll I got to go and visit Fripp Island Golf and Beach Resort for the first time. That's down in the Beaufort area of South Carolina. It's a barrier island, private island. You go in the gate. I actually had the chance to talk to Matt McGarry, who is the son of Cynthia Di McGarry. Together, they were part of the team that renovated the Ocean Point course, an original 1964 George Cobb design there, uh, and updated that. And I talked to him before we got there, and he said, driving in, you have to go over a bridge, a couple bridges maybe, uh, and once you get onto the barrier island, sh- cut the music off, roll down the windows, and it's in a way it's like stepping back in time. But the tranquility of this place, you're one with the sounds of the waves lapping on the shores and the birds flapping in the wind. I mean, just take a load off and enjoy the moments of nature out there. Nature is a big part of Fripp Island Resort. But back to the golf course. Dye Designs Group came in and took this cob design that interestingly, I was playing the course and seeing it for the very first time. I didn't see it before what it was, but I was using. If anyone's ever used the Grint app, it's a app on your phone that you can download. It uses Google Maps images to help you with GPS, and so I was using this and trying to figure out where it was going half the time, but actually the images on there hadn't been updated yet. So I was looking at the old golf course images from overhead and then seeing the new right in front of me. It was kind of an interesting juxtaposition. There's all these bunkers that look exactly the same and circle cookie cutter stuff. And then what I'm looking at is what the Dye Designs group did in adding 5.5 acres of this waste area and native dunes and native plants, kind of digging stuff out and to where these areas that were grassed around a couple of scattered bunkers is now a full waste zone of white sand. And the result there is a course that feels much better tied to the ocean than it appeared to have before. And I know you have played there. We talked about this, you and I, before my trip, and that was one of your big things about the Ocean Point course at Fripp Island was that it's a beach course that doesn't feel like it's on the beach. But now what you're seeing is a very natural looking uh, windswept layout that when the wind is up on the card, it's less than or maybe right at 6,500 yards. But that is such a deceptive number because that was the longest 6,500 yard course I've ever played. I had a let's see, this was on the front nine, seventh hole, 217 from the blacks, was playing in about a 3 club wind, and I hit driver short. So it can really bite on a windy day coming off the ocean like that. But all in all, just a really good experience.
Al, that's a good call. Fripp Island Resort is such a great vacation spot. You know, again, there's some really famous beach resorts up and down the East Coast with golf. Whether we're talking about Sea Pines with Harbor Town, and Atlantic Dunes having a golf hole on the ocean, whether talking about Sea Island, where as we speak, the pros are playing the RSM Classic. I mean, Charleston's got its share, but then there are a little further out, quieter places. As you say, let the stress melt away as you continue your drive out further on the bridges until you get to the right barrier island. And Fripp is one of those places. So the added draw of having two golf courses and two reasonably distinctive but very good golf courses is a great advantage. To take it if you want a long weekend and have the variety of golf without having to, travel very far. That's it right there. And from my experience of playing Ocean Point, which was a 1960s, I believe, George Cobb original. And back then you can picture it. George Cobb knew what he was doing in the design field, but budgets were pretty small for the most part in those days. So his go-to were just kind of, raise up the greens a little bit so that they would drain for challenge, especially when the wind blows. And then those big, shapeless, call them oval bunkers that were large enough for sand hazard value, but not a lot of character. And and that was that. I mean, George Cobb did that a lot of different places. And the fact that Dye Designs came in and recognized, I mean, Keel Island, where Pete did the famous ocean course, not too far away. So, to have them recognize that, say, we need to reshape the bunkers, do some things with the contouring, and then put in some of the landscaping that lets you know you are playing golf, seaside golf. Uh, yeah, two thumbs up for that.
Yeah, the hallmark out there is small, well bunkered greens. So accuracy with your irons is a premium. For those of you wondering, Cynthia Dye, the niece of Pete Dye. I know some of you might be
Correct.
have been thinking, is that Pete's daughter? No, niece. And you mentioned the two golf course. The other golf courses is Davis Love the third, uh, Love Designs Group. Their very first course they ever built was the Ocean Creek course at Fripp Island, and I when I was there, they said Mark Love, Davis's brother, came back and was surprised how well it still holds up, is what he had said. And I think it was a 1994 design or 1995, excuse me, um, by Love Designs. And uh, what a wonderful golf course that is too. They had a collegiate tournament while I was there, and I played it the day afterwards. You get out after about 6 holes out there and playing, mostly a gentle start. Really cool, drivable par four at the fourth hole that has sort of a bowled in green where you can't see the putting surface with this big ridge right in front of the green, but it's only about 255 yards off the tee. It's just awesome golf hole. But then you get out into the marsh and you can see incredible long range views over the marsh. Um, really tranquil and peaceful part of that property. Of course, Fripp has 3.5 miles of unobstructed beach. If you were to walk from one around the point to the other, one side around the other, you go 3.5 miles. Uh, and beach club, they've got a really cool. There's a naturalist department, so there's this building that you can, if you have kids, you can go look at snakes and frogs and take a gatorology class because, of course, there's gators all over the place there, too. A ton to do. Fripp Island Resort. You look at their website and see all the stuff you can do, but loved being there and having a new reason to go. So, Joe, what would be your first course that you want to talk about in this department?
Well, not only am I going to go across the country for my first pick, but probably something as different as you could possibly imagine. Um, when you talk about Fripp, you are next to the ocean. And my pick is, well, almost in my backyard, the Arizona Biltmore Golf Club in Phoenix. And it is in Phoenix. And the Arizona Biltmore Golf Club recently reopened, even though they recently reopened about 6 months prior. And that was a grand opening versus a soft opening in 2023. The reason I tell you about it is because we're talking about under the radar great destinations that have something new. So when many of you have made a trip to the desert, you come to the desert to play desert target golf. And most of the highest ranked golf courses embrace that out here. So there are fairways, kind of green ribbons, and the greens and tees, and then they are surrounded by that tawny colored desert with either cactus or low-lying shrubs, depending on the elevation. Well, the Arizona Biltmore Golf Club is none of that. This is Parkland Golf, plain and simple. And it was Parkland Golf because it's one of the state's oldest golf courses at one of the most storied resorts. So the two are adjacent to each other, not necessarily formally affiliated any longer, but because they're right next to each other, it's an easy link to make. And the hotel itself, the Arizona Biltmore, is pretty famous. I don't know, 8, 9 U.S. presidents have stayed there. Famous through history with Clark Gable lost his wedding ring on the golf course while on his honeymoon, and an employee found it and gave it back. And, I mean, we're going back a ways. This was one of Arizona's first golf courses and first all grass golf courses. So we're talking serious history here. The golf course for years had been known as the Adobe course when they built a second course in the late 1970s, but now that's changed. As of 2023, late in the year, a redesign by Tom Lehman's company uh, changed the name of the golf course to the Estates course at the Arizona Biltmore Golf Club. Okay, why the Estates? Well, think about it. This is an old course in a stately neighborhood with beautiful, beautiful homes. Not everybody loves homes on the golf course, and for the most part, a lot of the homes are off the golf course, drive around a couple of streets. But some of them that are on the golf course, you literally have to pause and look over and maybe snap a photo and say, that'd be kind of fun to live here. Part of the reason that would be fun to live there is it's an amazing location. You are right in the shadow of what is now called Piestewa Peak on one side, which is a great local mountain backdrop, very popular hiking spot, had been known for years in the politically incorrect days as Squaw Peak, but it was renamed for a soldier, Lori Piestewa, in the Iraq War. And so for 25, 30 years or so, that's the name of that peak. On the other side of the golf course, you have views that overlook downtown Phoenix because you're only about 15 minutes away from there and you're not too far from the airport. So because it's so close to Phoenix's attractions, you get a lot of celebrity type folk, Phoenix Suns, and so forth that live on the Biltmore in this area. And now it's called the Estates Course. So why am I talking about it? Okay, it's still pretty flat, just like classic Arizona golf was in the day. In the 1920s, you didn't move a lot of earth. Um, it was still a pretty golf course, and it was a great vacation course for folks who wanted to come to the desert instead of going, say, to Florida. Uh, Now, kind of time past that aspect of desert golf because it wasn't in the desert. It was surrounded by it, but not really on the course. It was parkland. Forrest Richardson, our friend we had on the show on our podcast a couple of years ago, did a pretty healthy redesign in 2004, I believe. Swapped out the first and 18th holes, restored some of the classic Billy Bell Sr. Flair to the bunkers. So, over time they had become kind of repetitive ovals. Now, almost 20 years later, Tom Lehman's group came in. They've had some successes across the country. And as they started the renovation, management and ownership realized maybe just set down basically a new golf course on top of the old one. And so that's what they did. Many of the corridors are the same, but some of them have changed. A couple of new shots, new holes, but much more flair in the bunkers, much more variety on and around the greens, just for more interest. So if you're going to take some time, maybe take a break from playing desert golf, or if you're hitting it crooked, it can be a long day. Come play some parkland golf. And the reason I say it's new is because not only was it late 23, early 24, but Phoenix had some record heat in the summer of 23 and 24. So Lehman's group and ownership came in and did even new irrigation, added thousands of mature trees and shrubs. So it gives the course a maturity that's reflective of a serious parkland course, from the day. And that's kind of why you're playing there. You're basking in the history, in its location, and you're saying, hey, it's got more variety than the old version. It's worth a do just as a little break for from all the target desert golf that you've been playing. So yeah, if you're in the region, come out and see some real golf history at the Arizona Biltmore in Phoenix.
Very cool. Yeah, maybe you've been to Arizona a few times and done the desert golf and love it, but might like a change of pace while you're there. This could be a wonderful option. If you're a subscriber to Links, you may have seen we had this in our winter 2024 issue, uh, popular 5 Reasons to Love column we did on the Arizona Biltmore, and that was around that same news. Uh, known as the jewel of the desert. It's become the jewel once again, thanks to this redesign of that uh, estates course and update to the clubhouse as well. So 20,000 square feet almost clubhouse looking out on the estates course and South Mountain in the distance. Um, Joe mentioned all that history at the hotel, and you can book a 90-minute walking tour if you'd like and learn all about that. Although Joe did a very good job of surmising all of that for you here, but you could, see, learn about what other A-listers have visited there and presidents, and check out the hotel's mystery room. It has a smoking chamber that doubled as a speakeasy during the Prohibition years. So cool property, for those who've not heard of the Arizona Biltmore, definitely under the radar, especially in the Arizona scene.
Yeah, the facilities at the golf club are worth coming to visit, even if you don't play that day. They're that good, that new, and there isn't a ton of actual history in Arizona. Until air conditioning came, this was not a popular spot for folks. So this place being so historic, if you love golf history and again, famous footsteps, you put it well, Al. Stop by the Arizona Biltmore when you're in Phoenix.
Let me take you back to Northeast Florida. So I'll go to the other side of the country again. We're talking another barrier island, another 3.5 miles of ocean frontage and beach off of the coast of Northeast Florida is the Omni Amelia Island Resort. And the reason that they are part of this list is that they have redone their Oak Marsh golf course. Bo Welling came in to update Pete Dye's original 1972 design there, preserving the quality, those Pete Dye features that everyone loves, and make sure that that will remain such for years to come. Now, that's not the only reason to visit. There's also in 2022, they opened a new short course called Little Sandy. It is a 10-hole par 3 course, holes with 30 to 101 to 125 yards, playing through the marshy area inland there at the Omni Amelia Island Resort. Of course, they've got pools and a spa and all that beach and a wonderful Omni hotel there. But the newest news there is what Bo Welling did to preserve, update. They put in new grasses, Tiff Eagle Bermuda on the greens. Um, I think, I've not played there, I've not visited there. It's a place I've heard of and been like, okay, maybe one day, but never really had a reason to go. Now we kind of do. We got a really fresh golf course and a really relatively new short course too that can make for a nice golfing adventure and long weekend or full week even with all the other activities you can do there at the Omni Amelia Island. But who doesn't like vacationing in Florida and playing golf, resort style golf there?
Well, Al, you got to put it on your list to get there eventually, soon. With everything Bo Welling is doing with the Oak Marsh course at Omni Amelia Island. I say that because when I was 14 years old, and my younger sisters and younger brother and I, we were ready to take a family vacation in, 1976. And Dad flipped a coin. We were going to the Southeast. He literally flipped a coin, and we wound up going to Sea Pines in Hilton Head, and playing those great golf courses. Not all of them, but many of them. Playing a lot of tennis, heading to the beach, all of that. The property that lost the coin flip was Amelia Island. So I didn't get to go to Amelia Island for another 40 years.
Oh,
And yeah, it took me a while, but I was so glad that I did to see both sides of that coin. Many, many visits, including living in the area in Hilton Head for a while. But to see Amelia Island, I was struck because it was early Pete Dye. Um, And an early Pete dye meant shot making, meant kind of tight fairways hemmed in by live oak trees and some lagoons and so forth. It wasn't about length. Remember, Harbor Town wasn't about length. It wasn't until later that developers wanted Pete to build these monsters, to host major championships and test the best. For the most part, in Pete's early career, he was building, pretty fun resort courses, and Oak Marsh is absolutely one of them. So I was really taken because it was almost a nostalgic thing seeing Pete's stuff, what he believed in, and the bulkheaded hazards and greens and so forth, with the way it was laid out. And and Bo Welling being very respectful of the Dye influence and legacy. He's got his own great story he tells about running into Pete Dye when they were building the ocean course at Kiowa and practically getting run off, but then asked to join in when he was a kid. So I know there's a lot of love and respect going for that renovation slash restoration. Yeah, fantastic resort property. Again, I enjoyed my stay there very much. More golf in the region to play, but I'm really looking forward to seeing the new and improved, if you will, Oak Marsh at Omni Amelia Island.
That was the cool part in reading about it for me is the comp was Harbor Town, which most people know pretty well, if you played it or watched it on TV, and it was built right afterwards. I mean, Harbor Town was 1969, and this was 1972. Pete Dye, so a lot of similarities between the two. It would kind of would make me excited to see that type of golf. Although Harbor Town beats me up pretty good because of how accurate you have to be throughout. And if you're seeing some of the same of that here and dealing with those moss draped oaks like you're doing along that southeastern coast, I could see myself having trouble there as well, but uh, absolutely loving every minute of a round playing it. So cool news out of Omni Amelia Island Resort. We'll have to get there at some point. Maybe I'll flip a coin on it and see where life takes me. So next for you is where? Are we staying in the country or are we venturing off?
Yeah, we're going south, way south. We're going to Mexico. And we're not going to the deserts of Mexico. We're going to the tropics of Mexico at a resort called Playa Mujeres. And forgive my stumbling over the correct Spanish pronunciation, Mujeres. Uh, and it's a very well-known resort. Best of all, to start with, it's only 3 miles north of Cancun, so very easy to get to. And what's going on at Playa Mujeres? Well, I have played in Cancun. I have played nearby in Playa del Carmen. I have not played at this resort, but I'm certainly a fan of Cancun. We've debated that on whether we like the tropics or the desert on our podcast in the past, as far as Mexico goes. So, Greg Norman Design built a championship layout there in 2006. The intent was to build another championship layout, but we remember 2008 hit into 9, into 10, into 13. Pretty big recession, among resort properties and residential properties, and started to finally emerge. A lot of golf courses were put on hold in that era. Well, that second championship golf course has not been built yet. But the good news for fans of bonus golf is Greg Norman Design just came back to build a 9-hole short course. And from the sounds of it, it's kind of like everything you'd want and you get to experience in the big course just in a little package. And we all know there are a lot of distracting fun things to do when you're in Cancun, from the beaches to the sightseeing and so forth. So this new golf course Again, Jason McCoy, lead designer for Greg Norman, um, and he maintains that from a design standpoint, they attempted to emulate the philosophy of the championship course just in 9 short holes. So, um, gentle collection areas around the greens and and shaping on the greens that again leads you to maximum variety, including say a double green with the first and ninth holes, big waste bunkers, holes that go towards the Caribbean Sea, if you like, um, and other highlights to the round. I mean, you don't want your par three course any longer to be just an afterthought. You want it to be engaging, just much shorter time frame and fewer clubs you're hitting. And it sounds like this golf course, which is finished but won't formally open until next month, is a worthy attraction if you're playing in and around Cancun and perhaps staying at Playa Mujeres.
I remember going to Cancun, and one of my favorite things that we did was just they had a mini golf course like right on the beach where you just take a beverage and go out and hit the ball around. And to imagine doing that, but on a par three course where you can actually take some real swings and enjoy the sunshine and the coastal breezes and all that sounds like a good deal that I would sign up for. And so, man, if I can get back to Cancun and do some of that, Playa Mujeres is looking like a good option.
Yeah, and I mean the thing I should mention is that for all the fun you can have in quotes in Cancun, this is a hugely popular family destination. It's so accessible from the East Coast, Southeast, even the Southwest. So to have a family golf experience where you can go buzz around with a few golf clubs and whatever your family ages and abilities, that's a great thing to have. But good players will certainly be entertained by the variety involved. So, yeah, yeah, it's again time to start thinking about another trip to Cancun.
I can deal with that. Sure, definitely. So last for me, I'm going to Idaho, Joe. Yes, Idaho. I
I
said
don't
that.
know.
I don't know,
Idaho. All
Idaho.
right.
And, if you're thinking of golf in Idaho, Coeur d'Alene is probably where your mind goes. And maybe you've been lucky enough to get an invite to the exclusive Gaza Ranch, which just is a big name out there. But Tamarack Resort, Joe, had an original 2006, speaking of Robert Trent Jones Jr., RTJ2 design there. They ended up closing in the year 2015. New owners took the resort and said, hey, we want to open this back up and bring it back to life. And they did that in 2021. And now this course has reopened. And from what I'm reading, it's enhanced playability. They've taken out a bunch of forced carries. The mountain, meadow, and lakes views are all still there that you're going to expect from this resort in Idaho. And they've also added a new 19th hole gambler's hole to the course. So a rejuvenated, brand new, if you will, RTJ2 design at this course that is part of the resort that calls themselves America's only ski, golf, and lake resort. So there's a lot to do depending on the season there. And, I take that tagline. I can think of a few that you could probably combine one or two of those things. But, you roll down the list of their winter and summer options, their camps for kids. You can go whitewater rafting, hiking, axe throwing, summer fishing, ice fishing, fat tire biking. Uh, Depending on the time of year, you're going to get a totally different experience here at Tamarack Resort. It's in Tamarack, Idaho. And of course, this is a place I've never been, but they do have a brand new, I say brand new, but reopened and rejuvenated golf course that they brought back to life.
Al, I could think of combining two of those activities into something I would call fat tire fishing, which would involve kind of casting a line, seeing what I could reel in, and then taking a nice little sip or two on a fat tire, fine ale out our way. So that's just an aside. I love your choice. Osprey Meadows at Tamarack Resort. I always thought it suffered a little bit just because it was a mouthful in the name. Should we think about it as Osprey Meadows or Tamarack Resort? Okay, well, once you get over that, you're talking about a golf course that back in 2006 won awards. The Golf Digest, I believe, gave it best new resort golf course of the year, or best affordable, or best something. It was top of the heap from a pretty prestigious ranking in 2006. And, again, everybody's got a different reason or five reasons why the property doesn't do as well as it should. And it could come down again to countless aspects. So the fact that it closed and like, wow, are we really going to lose this good golf course in that part of the world? And for new ownership to come in and understand, we don't need a new golf course here. We need to revive an old, great golf course. Credit Trent Jones too. And Robert Trent Jones Jr. himself is one of those guys that admits his style evolves. And so, what was popular selling a lot of that stuff in the first part of the 21st century was about visuals and difficulty and hazard value. And maybe in the last 10 years, we've brought it back to more playability, lower profile aspects, fewer forced carries, that kind of thing. And I know they did a great job in making a wonderful golf course at Century World in Wisconsin more playable. And it sounds like they've done exactly that with Osprey Meadows at Tamarack Resort in Idaho. So, with all of that other fun outdoor stuff to do, whatever season you prefer, but go at least when it's not snowing, so you can play this revamped, refurbished, reimagined golf course that's back in business.
And for those of you wondering, it's Tamarack Resort, Lake Cascade. It's about 2 hours and some change north of the state capital, Boise, in Idaho. So if you're looking to go and fly in somewhere not too far out of the way to get here to Tamarack Resort.
Yeah,
All right.
Al, the course reopened in mid-July, I believe, late July, and 85-year-old Robert Trent Jones Jr. was on hand to christen the reopening. So he's still getting around and seeing the work that his company does.
Good stuff. All right. Last for you. Let's hear it.
Okay, well, we're going to stick up in the northern half of the country, and we're going to go to northern Michigan. Michigan, northern Michigan in particular, had long advertised itself as America's summer golf capital because the season's fairly short. You're getting that far north and it gets chilly, but there are so many wonderful golf courses, wonderful golf facilities, complexes up there. We could spend a whole podcast just talking about those places. So, what do I want to talk about in northern Michigan? Well, that's new. It's interesting because the theme of this podcast today was under the radar destinations that have something new to see. So, man, I'm thinking, well, Boyne in Michigan is the granddaddy, the giant. They're not under the radar. They have 10 championship golf courses and then an 11th on the way. Ray Hearn doing a short course called Dunebray. And that is scheduled to arrive in 2025. But again, they're not under the radar. So, gosh, should I move to Arcadia Bluffs with the famous Bluffs course right on the cliffs? that's been in the top 20 you can play for years. And then they added a course from Dana Fry and Jason Straka, the South course, which was very much a uh, classic homage to CB McDonald and Seth Rayner. And that opened a couple years ago. Oh no, that's not exactly low profile. And they are adding a 12-year-old course called The Dozen that's coming up in expected to open in July of 25. So where is this under the radar destination I want to talk about? Well, here it is. It's called the Island Resort and Casino, and it's even further north in Michigan on the Upper Peninsula. UP, or Upers, as they call the folks that live there. There is a lot of great golf up in the Upper Peninsula too, starting with the Island Resort and Casino. They've had an architect do their first two courses named Paul Albanese, and he did the Sweetgrass course back in 2008. And it's strong enough regarded in a state full of fantastic public courses that Golf Week has it ranked in the top 10 in the state. He added another course called Sage Run, which is very different. The first course was on the Linksy side, Sage Run less so. That adds two championship courses with great contrast, but guests are demanding more golf. So Albanese is coming back and he's in the process of designing a third nine called Cedar. There is a tribal name for it. I'll leave that to your research. We'll call it Cedar, and it's 9 regulation holes. So it's not a short course. It's just more golf on the site where Sage Run exists. Now, there's no formal opening date yet. The resort is thinking 2026, but it's something to have in mind when you go visit in 2025 and see how the new course, the new nine, is coming along. And you got two terrific, well-regarded older championship 18s to go after. And you too can be an honorary Uper on Michigan's Upper Peninsula.
Our man Eric Matuszewski, who writes with us, was on the beat on this particular announcement when that was brought up in July of this year, and it's part of this $19 million capital project. They're going to build a new golf shop at Sweetgrass, add to their convention center at the resort. But the course, as you mentioned, it's a regulation 9. They included the planned scorecard that had 3 par 3s, 3 par 4s, and 3 par 5s. And Albanese talked a lot about how he wanted to, bring some of the golden age course architecture up to the UP and show people some things they may not have seen before, including a punch bowl hole, a double plateau. He mentioned the juniper hole, the sixth at Augusta National, is something that he has planned for this course, and even some church pew bunkers like at Oakmont. So this will be a really, picturesque, very interesting short course, if you will. I mean, I love the fact that it's 333, very unique and a kind of just a standalone nine, but that'll give this place 45 holes of golf and some very fun layouts in the Sweetgrass and the Sage Run courses. It's just one of those places I've always heard about. You've got an island green there, like they've got all this stuff that is attractive and interesting, but when are you ever going to get there? I don't know, but yeah, that it totally flies under the radar in Michigan.
Yeah, make plans. I mean, with all that good golf, uh, when you also have casino gaming, and that goes hand in hand with other activities and solid quality dining. I mean, why not? You got to consider if they're flying under the radar, it's probably also a really good value. And a lot of us are seeking that these days too.
If you're in the UP, it's part of the country that's, if you're looking at it on the map, it's above Toronto and Ottawa and Montreal and Canada if you're looking straight across. I've always heard the people there are wonderful and incredibly nice, and maybe they think they're half Canadian, half American, but and that's it. But I've always heard good things about the Upper Peninsula in every way. So uh, why not take an excuse to go up there and check it out?
Exactly.
So let us know if you know of some other projects that you may consider to be under the radar that are out there. This is what we came up with in our research, and all very exciting. And it sounds like we got some travel to do to actually see some of these places. We're just, reading news releases and going off what we've heard in a lot of cases, but exciting stuff all around. And was happy to do this as our topic this week. So, Joe, until the next time, we're coming up on Thanksgiving and lot to be thankful for. To hint at another episode we've got coming up, but appreciate the conversation today.
I look forward to it, Al. Good being with you as always.
Likewise. Thanks, Joe.